With infinite complacence, people went to and fro over the earth about their little affairs, serene in the assurance of their dominion over this small, spinning fragment of solar driftwood, which by chance or design man has inherited out of the dark mystery of time and space.
On this episode of Into the Fray, I welcome Ray on with me. And straight out of the gate, I want to let everybody know, Ray and I will probably be having at least one more conversation, or if not two, who knows, right, Ray? Depending on how far down the rabbit hole I probably end up taking you with my billions of questions. But Ray has a lot of very interesting things to share. He got in touch via email and sent me a wonderful list, just like I like to get, and we are here to cover at least a good portion of that today. But Ray, welcome on the show.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so it looks like your email is in sequential order for the most part. I know that, and especially, and don't worry about this, once we get going, we'll jump around a little bit, especially if I think of a question that we've already covered a subject of, and we'll hop back over there. But
yeah, a lot of stuff kind of will like tap into past stuff. There's
right.
Like a lot of weird stuff like that.
Yeah, I was kind of seeing that where some of this stuff ties in, but it's important tie-in, so that will have to happen. So I actually have your email printed out. So and like I said, it looks like we start in sequential order. So if that's where we should start, I would probably hazard to say that would be the right thing to do. So if you want to just go ahead and jump in and we'll see how we roll. I'm going to really try to zip my lips and before we move to another subject, maybe, we'll see if I have any questions. I'm sure I will, but take it away.
Believe I started with when I was 4 years old in New York. So basically throughout my upbringing, I would bounce between living in New York and moving to Scranton, Pennsylvania, depending on what was going on with my parents. So it was the earliest that I remember things happening was when I was 3, living in Middletown. Nothing scary, just something that I remember, where I'm an only child. So I would be in the apartment with my mother and I would hear my name get barked out by a male voice occasionally. And it would just sound like Raymond. And that would be it. And it wasn't my father's voice or anything, but that was when I knew, like, I didn't know what paranormal was back then, but I knew it wasn't normal, but it didn't scare me. But then we moved to an apartment in Monroe, New York, and that's where things got a little darker, where I was always filled with terror before going to bed, where I needed my mom or somebody to just stay with me until I fell asleep, because there's just no way. They could be in the next room. They needed to be in my room. And I didn't know how to describe, because it wasn't like a monster in the closet or under the bed. It was like a presence that I knew was there, which frustrated my father. And so one night in the middle of the night, I woke up in the middle. So the protocol was, if I ever woke up in the middle of the night, I would just go right to my parents' bed. That was just protocol. And one evening I fell out of my bed. It's when I got my big boy bed. So it was a twin bed. And I fell onto the hardwood floor, which naturally jarred me awake. So as I go to head towards my parents' bedroom, I noticed that the kitchen light was on. And so I go into the kitchen, and there's a very tiny kitchen. So I go all the way in, which wasn't very far, being tiny. And there's a pantry closet where we kept canned goods and cereal. And it was shelved, so there's no way a person can fit in that. So as I enter and I turn around, I noticed that the pantry was open maybe an inch and a half. And it opens and my mother comes out of it and she lunges at me, and she had this like evil smile, grabs my left arm, and then digs her fingers into my ribs on my right, tickling me with this like hideous, maniacal, evil smile until, you know, when you're tickled where your lungs expel everything and you can't take in a breath. So it feels like your lungs are stuck.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what it did to me. And I don't know if she let me go or if I managed to wrench away. And then I run to my parents' bed and I guess I crawl in and eventually fall asleep. And of course, I asked my mother why she tickled me, even though I kind of knew it wasn't her. My mother thought I was dreaming. And on another occasion in that same apartment, I was in the living room, and this was probably around 5-ish p.m. My mom was cooking dinner for my dad when he gets home from work. And I was messing with the yo-yo, being frustrated because I couldn't get the damn thing to work. And I looked to my right where the hall was to exit the apartment, and within that hall was a doorway into the bathroom. And as I look to my right, I see this skeletal hand slowly like emerge from the doorway, and it was like this grayish skin, and it just slowly came out and then slowly pulled back in. So I scream, you know, someone's in the bathroom. And my mom, having been diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, you know, so that's not something that she would like to hear, because she was always paranoid that someone was breaking in, poisoning the food. So she wasn't exactly mentally stable. So we're inching closer to the bathroom. My mom's freaked out, and of course she discovers there's no one in there, and we were on the second floor, so she sees that the chain is still on the door, so no one could have gotten in. So she yelled at me, said that I was lying, and so that was that. And that was things that happened in New York. As far as, I don't even know what to call that, paranormal. But then also at 4 years old, we would visit my grandmother in Scranton for holidays and stuff. And same thing. If I had to sleep with my parents, and that must have been hell for them, you know, because they're young and their kid wants to be in bed with them all the time. So I realized how difficult that must have been. So at my grandmother's, I fell asleep in the living room on the couch, and I wake up in the middle of the night, and of course everyone's upstairs sleeping. And again, this is protocol. I'm not even afraid at this moment. It's just, I know me, and I got to get in bed with my parents. So like, there's just no option. So as I go to the doorway leading upstairs, so there are like two doorways. In between the two doorways is the stairwell going up to the second floor. And when I reach that doorway, there's this little being with grayish white skin, a bulbous head, and it moved in like fast, slithery, a lot of things that I'm going to describe. I wish that you could see me to actually gesticulate. So I'll try to do my best verbally. So it had this, like, its arms move in this quick, slithery way. I was startled, so I run past it and try to get up the steps. And I got up a few, and then my right above my right ankle was grabbed in this really tight grip, and I'm being like pulled down. Like, to this day, I'm 53 now, and I can still feel how the carpet rubbed underneath my forearms. And when I tried to scream, my vision tunneled fast. You know, when you feel like you're about to pass out, you get the slow tunnel vision until like it either you snap out of it or you pass out. It was like that, but it was just like really fast. And then the next morning I said, a mummy got me, because I didn't know how else to describe it, because I didn't have. And even to this day, I'm open to the fact that it might not be, in quotes, an alien abduction, but it seems to have, you know, similar characteristics of other stories I've heard. And again, this is Scranton, Pennsylvania, in probably 1975, which I believe there were a lot of cases in the New York, Pennsylvania area in that time of like the incidents like that.
So the schizophrenia that your mother was diagnosed with, as far as growing up, was she diagnosed at a later point in your life, or it was just growing up, you just knew that's what she had? I mean, at the time when you're super young, you don't know exactly what it is. I'm just saying, was she always diagnosed, even maybe before you were around?
I think she had issues. I don't think it was diagnosed, but I know that she went through a severe postpartum depression where she was hospitalized, and that was right after birth. So I would bounce around to different, family members, aunts, and either in Scranton or in New York City, where my dad was from. So she would be in and out of one particular psychiatric hospital, and they gave her the old school shock therapy. So I'm sure that was a whole other type of hell for her.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
How long did she have to go through something like shock therapy?
Well, she passed away in 2019, and I think the last several years they gave her, I guess they revisited that, but I believe there's like a big span of years where she would just be. So like when my parents were split, my mom would like be on welfare, and like, so, and she filed for disability. She got all this like government assistance for that, and not until and sadly, like I can't remember exactly when she was admitted into, I believe, the Clark Summit State Hospital, which did that probably in the last 10 years of her life. I think they tried that, and they just pumped her with all sorts of medication.
I thought that you were going to say the shock therapy was 30 years ago. That's surprising
it
to me.
was like in the 70s, like when she was in the hospital in New York. And then I think they started doing it again when she was back in Pennsylvania, because she just kind of spiraled. I mean, my mother was in a constant state of spiraling. Like she would come back and things would be good, but then inevitably she would, start. She was never 100% sane, but there'd be a definite point where she would go into like very like just terrible. Like I would have to taste test her food, just, and that's just like a portion of what I'd gone through when she would fully snap.
Wow. So was she ever a danger to herself or anybody around her? Like, was there ever any question that you should be alone with her?
Oh, well, she was physically abusive to me, not to where like my life would be in danger, but she was a tiny woman, so like 5 feet tall, and if she would spank me, she would feel that she wasn't inflicting enough pain because she believes herself to be tiny, although I'm 4, 5, 6 years old, which is
Yeah. Yeah.
So what she would do to supplement that would dig her nails into my arm and to inflict more pain.
Well, I'm so sorry about all that, Ray. That's a whole nother layer of that's not a childhood anybody should be subjected to. And I realized that she had a mental illness, so technically it wasn't her. I mean, it is her fault, but it isn't, so.
Oh, trust me, I've
terrible.
battled that, to this very moment. Like I still, because like it caused my emotions to be severed from her. So even when she passed away, like I had to dig deep to feel sadness.
Right. I could imagine. Absolutely. And then she and your father did separate or divorce at some point?
Yeah, they would go back and forth up until when I was 12. And that was when we left Middletown, New York. So my mom and we would always go back to her mom's, my grandmother. And that was the final time that they split up and eventually got divorced.
And then is anyone else in the family diagnosed with something?
Not to that degree. Throughout the years, I've heard that my grandmother dealt with depression, but not anything close to that degree.
Do you think that when you were young and you were going through this abuse, that, and I'm not saying that you didn't have these experiences, and I know from the list that these continue, but I'm wondering if you were putting something out into the ether that in a way you wanted someone or something to take you out of that situation. And I don't know what that looks like. I'm not saying
you mean like
that you wanted, and I'm not saying that it didn't happen. I'm just saying that maybe you were putting some kind of special vibes out there that, and like I said, I'm not saying that you wanted to be taken away on a spaceship, but maybe as a kid in your mind, you essentially would think that would be I don't know if you even had the capacity to think like that, if you were tapped into something else. Do you know what I mean? Maybe I didn't word that very well.
No, it was worded perfectly, and it's a great question. I don't have an I suppose if I can tap into my childhood brain, I think I more wanted to be saved by those around me than looking for someone to yank me out of it.
Yeah. I mean, did your dad realize that the abuse was going on, the physical abuse?
I don't know. Probably not. I know he had his issues. He was an alcoholic, not present, but he was incredibly loving. And I don't think he would have stood for that if he knew. I know he definitely wouldn't. Because right when I was born, and I found this out like many, many years later, that my mom wanted to give me up. And he threatened to leave her. So he always, despite not being there due to his own issues, he did have a strong element of protection for me.
So
might sound a little contradictory, but
no, I totally get that, and I hope I'm not prying too much. I'm sorry, I'm just trying
I'm an open book.
Okay, thanks, Ray. So she would do things like dig her nails into your arm. Would he just think that you did that somehow, and she would explain it to him
to a degree that it would leave a mark where it would get his attention.
Wow,
it was just enough to like freak me out at the time and hurt for the moment.
So she made sure not to leave marks, essentially, like a lot of abusers will do.
Yeah.
Jeez. I just can't imagine that. I'm so sorry, Ray, that you went through all that, especially being so young. And, at 3 or 4 years old, I don't know that I have any conscious memories of anything at 3 or 4. They might be in there if I really, was maybe under hypnosis, or I don't know. But those are very early memories to have.
Yeah. There's some vivid memories of stuff that even go that far back. I guess it depends on the intensity of the experience.
And isn't it interesting that, and it's very dark. It speaks to the darkness that was around you no matter what, because of your mother and her condition. But this thing that came out and was tickling you and had this evil look and grin about it, just, and how sad though that in your mind you kind of knew it wasn't her, but you thought it could be her because she would hurt you all the time.
Yeah, I don't know what my level of comprehension was at that moment to formulate any idea of what happened.
Right. No, and I understand that, and I appreciate you're being as honest as you can, and you're saying, hey, here's what I remember, here's what I don't, and that's that's exactly what I want. If you don't remember something, you just say, hey, I don't know, I don't remember, but we're just presenting the facts as you remember them, as best you can. So, and like I said, those are very early memories, none of them nice.
No.
At all. Okay, so the next section is the ages 7 to 11 in Goshen, New York.
Right. So at this time, and the fear that I described when I was 4, that kind of was ever present, and to varying degrees. So in Goshen, we actually lived in 3 different apartments on the same block, because it's just how our family was. The second house we lived in is, at this time, I don't remember being that scared, like, to how scared I've been when we were in the Monroe apartment and in other periods. But that is when I woke up in the middle of the night to use the restroom, and I cut through my parents' bedroom, and I see a little boy sitting on the floor at the corner of the bed on my mom's side. And he was sitting, and his arms were wrapped around his folded legs. And I remember he had a blue and yellow wide striped shirt. And I walked right up to him because I thought I was seeing things. And I rubbed my eyes and I re-look, and he's still there and he's looking up at me. And I just thought, man, I'm really seeing stuff. So I go to the bathroom, I come out, he's gone. And then the following year, we moved to the third and final apartment at the end of the block. And I'm playing with my friends, and they made a reference to some boy who died in the house it was a duplex. So in that apartment, and apparently there was a child who was either running around with a knife or scissors, and he ran into it or something, and he died in the house. And so I believe I probably saw that kid's ghost. And then in the third apartment, that's where, now I feel like I need to interject or add this. Probably since I was 8 years old onward is when and I don't know where the influence came from, I had a profound interest in the occult, magic, UFO, Bigfoot, basically everything that you cover on your channel. And so I would dig into this stuff, get freaked out about it, but I couldn't stop trying to learn as much as I could. And I remember being 8 years old and trying to find as many books as I could on it. And I come from, Roman Catholic, where we barely practiced that, between me and my mom and my dad. So that my mindset was beginning to build in that frame of thinking. And so at the third apartment, I woke up in the middle of the night, and I was sleeping in my own room, and I was filled with terror, and I couldn't get back to sleep. And I'm 11 at this time. And I walk into my parents' room, and at this time, I feel like I'm too old to get in bed with them, but I cannot get back to sleep. So I'm standing by my mom, like trying to figure out, what am I going to do? I can't go back to bed. I can't get in their bed. And I don't even know how long I'm up. And then out of nowhere, I hear this loud, like devil laughter, like something that you would hear out of a movie, this ha, 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 ha. And it had this echoey, metallic sound where it's hard to describe. It sounded and felt like it was bouncing off the walls. And it sounded like metallic or electronic. I don't know how to describe it. I've heard other people describe that characteristic, and it feels like they were describing what I experienced that night.
So with all these things going on, how much, and I can guess absolutely with your mother, I would hazard to say you probably didn't discuss anything with her. But what about your father? If he was around and you guys were having a nice moment maybe between the two of you, did you discuss any of this stuff that had gone on up to this point?
Like let them know what I've witnessed and stuff? I don't remember saying anything to them, and I also don't know why. I remember asking I was 11, asking if my father, if he believed in, psychic stuff and UFOs, and it just went as far as, yeah, I believe that stuff, so, but we never fully discussed it, but I never really divulged anything. And I don't know why. I guess I may have thought that I wouldn't be believed. And I think it was just something that I would try to work through, most unsuccessfully though, because the terror never left.
I mean, even in the most loving home, and we hear this over and over, right? And I don't even care if you're 17 or 7. It's tough to bring this stuff up. As you just said, you don't know if you're going to be believed or laughed at or, oh, that was a dream and just dismissed. But especially now take your mother, who is a paranoid schizophrenic, up to thinking that her food is poison and all people are always trying to break in. I'm sure for you, part of that was, well, I can't rock that boat because she's already in this state. And if I talk about little alien grays or a doppelganger of her coming out of, a pantry or closet to come get me, that'll put her into a tailspin.
Yeah, I don't think I was probably, I mean, not thinking as an adult in that way would make sense. But as a kid, I don't think I was worried about, triggering her into some sort of episode.
Yeah, you just want your mom. You just want, hey, mom, like, something scared me. Something's bad. Comfort me, right?
Yeah. And she, I have to say, I'm focusing on the negative stuff, but when she was okay, she was extremely loving. It's just that she couldn't hold on to that mind frame. So I had good doses of love, and then, of course, the abuse and insanity.
So the bad was really bad, and when it was good, it was really good. Well, at least there's that.
Yeah.
All right. So the next section is I'm assuming you were on with Dave and Tim of Darkness Radio at some point, and then Brett Butler came on. Maybe she was the guest and you called in. I don't know the situation. You can set it up for us. But Brett Butler is a very, very talented, I guess she labels herself a medium or psychic, right?
Yeah. I guess now she does. So this is when I lived in Louisville, and I know I don't pronounce it the way Louisvillians pronounce it, but I worked at this place, became friends with a guy he was the administrative assistant for payroll, and he was at one time an aspiring comedian, and he was on the Pat Sajak show, Arsenio Hall show. So he was and then he just stopped getting work, and he was friends with Brett Butler, and I guess he was going to be a special guest star on her show, but they never used his clip. And one day, in the office, I'm walking to someone's cubicle, and my friend is slowly walking up to me while he's on his cell phone, and he says, "Brett Butler is on the phone, and she would like to speak to you." I'm like, "What?" So I'm talking to Brett Butler in my cubicle for 2 hours. And apparently this was in 2012, if I remember correctly, around February 2012, where I guess it was then that she was coming out as a psychic medium. And we talked about, I can't even tell you what we talked about, but it was 2 hours. And admittedly, it was a little bizarre, where a lot of it, I didn't know what the hell she was talking about. But it was neat that I was talking to this celebrity in my cubicle. So after the phone call, I was like, what was that about? And so he was catching up with her, and she started detecting what she called a high vibrational being, and she needed to talk to him. And apparently it was me. So I'm skeptical. I'm like, are you sure it was me? And my friend, he's a master at sarcasm, and he's just like, no, Ray. She was asking for one of the 9 other high vibrational beings that I know. I'm like, okay. So, and Brett and I emailed a couple times, and then that didn't continue. So eventually, a girl that I was seeing at the time, we discovered that we're having a child, and she was from the Atlanta, Georgia area. So I drop everything and move to Georgia so I could be with my daughter when she was born. And so I worked for Kindred Healthcare. They allowed me to work out of the hospital in Midtown Atlanta doing the same stuff. So I was able to transfer. And so while I'm working, I'm a sucker for everything paranormal. So as I work, I always try to find paranormal shows to listen to. And at that time, I stumbled upon Darkness Radio. The first show I listened to, Dave Schrader's like, and here we are with Brett Butler. And I was like, what? So he's talking to Brett Butler, as a medium psychic and stuff. So I even emailed the show. I was like, oh, yeah, say hi to Brett for me. We talked and we're friends with, I won't mention his name, just to our mutual friend. And, I didn't get any word back. And then a few months later, Dave said that Brett is going to have like a free 1-question psychic reading if you call in. So there's no way I'm going to miss that. So I call in like 3 hours before, and I'm online, on hold for literally 3 hours, and they get to me. So I'm like number one. And I was like, hey, we talked, a year ago or so, and I'm friends with who. And she's like, oh my God, I know this guy. So it's kind of funny that this celebrity is like, I know this guy. So it was kind of cool. And at the time I was going through some issues, and I didn't even get my question out. And she says, I don't know what you're doing there, but you're opening portals. She's like, I'm not used to this. I'm used to dead relatives. I don't know even what to call what you're dealing with. So we talked for a bit, and then they go on break. So that was the end of our call. And then when I listened to the next day, after the break, because I went to bed, it was late. And so when she gets back on, and she's like, I just want to throw it out there. Don't do what Ray does. Like opening portals. And at the time I was doing a lot of ritual magic, and I have practiced ritual magic since my 20s. So apparently she picked up on it. And she talked to another caller, and she said that I see portals around you, but not like Ray. Like she kept on referring to me like I'm the example of what not to do.
So you were trying to manifest good things in your life or change some bad things that were going on.
Through the magical efforts.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I believe I figured out my motives, where initially it was because I was always in a powerless situation, and I was drawn to things that I believed would give me power, and continuing with that, it was immature, foolish, but it eventually led to discovering that there is a genuine path to enlightenment, where it's not so much as developing power for what normally someone would try to attain, that usually to punish their oppressors or whatnot. It started out that way, like no one's going to mess with me once I get magic powers. But then eventually it led to, okay, there's actually a spiritual discipline to this. And that's where I am currently, on that path of not so much the ritual magic, but things related to what's termed the Western mystery tradition.
Yeah, and I know that later on we've got some of that coming up as far as that subject goes, but I've got a pretty good tangent to ask you, because even just, on my episode with Chris, with the forest people, right? He was talking about there's people that are on certain vibrations or frequencies that the forest people, aka the Bigfoot, would prefer to communicate with or interact with. I'm wondering, have you ever gone out to maybe a more active location and done any Bigfoot type stuff just to see, because what you just said, as far as what Brett has labeled you, I'm wondering if you would have a moth to a flame kind of a situation.
I've never formally tried any Bigfoot contact. I've never seen one. I've never heard one. They apparently don't have an interest in me. Other things apparently do, just not Bigfoot.
That's right. We're in the same boat. I've maybe heard a couple of them, but, until you see one making that sound, you can't say for sure, But no, all right. We're in that same boat together, Ray, so don't worry. Okay. All right. So the next thing that you've mentioned here is the Scranton Sanatorium.
Oh, yeah. So when I was a teenager, my friends and I would go up there, and it was always reputed to having satanic activity, and we would go there just to drink and smoke things, and nothing ever happened. It was just creepy and cool. You know how kids like creepy and cool. And then years later, so my friend, I'll just use initials instead of definite names. My friend L, I joined the Navy, and eventually she joined the Navy. I got stationed in Iceland, left Iceland to go to Virginia, where she was stationed. After I left Iceland, I went to Pennsylvania on leave, where Elle was also on leave. And so we met up and hung out, and we were gonna drive up together or drive down to Virginia so I could check in my new duty station. But so we go. So this sanatorium is more outside of Scranton, so I want to say it's close to the Clark Summit area. So we go there, and it's probably like 12, maybe 1 a.m., just hanging out, just to reminisce. We're parked on the side of the road, and so the building's slightly to our right. And the grounds in the back, and if I'm not mistaken, there's a cemetery that surrounds the grounds. And I see these, maybe a dozen or so of these maybe 3 feet tall black ovals that are kind of gliding around, like slowly, like just around each other. And there's one little thing. And I'm seeing this. I didn't say anything. And then Elle says, "Do you see little dark things?" And I didn't want to give away what I saw because I don't want to make any suggestions. So I was like, "Well, I don't know. What did you describe it to me?" And she described exactly what I was seeing. So there were these little dark egg-shaped things that were just kind of hanging out on the sanatorium grounds. Not that spectacular, but it's not nothing.
No, definitely not. And see, these are the one-offs that I've usually, and you've heard me say this a lot of times, will stick in somebody's craw and get them to reach out because it's just so unique and different that's what prompts them to get in touch with me and maybe share some of their encounters. So these black egg-shaped things are, when I read that, at the first time I was like, that's different. I don't know that I recall ever hearing something like that before.
Yeah, they were like ovalish, eggy, maybe, because it was probably maybe 75 yards away. So I'm estimating that if we were up close, it would be maybe 3 feet high. And I even said, I was like, I am going to go down there and check this out. And Elle's like, "Y'all scream." I don't think anyone will hear you.
I like that tie-in. That was awesome. Because that's what my mind always goes to, the xenomorph. So there you go. You're like, yeah, ain't nobody going to hear you scream. I love that, Ray. A huge high five. Okay, so the sanatorium, I mean, that's an obvious place where bad things have gone on. The older a sanatorium is, they're not only rumored to be haunted, but as you said, maybe some people that like to do darker rituals are drawn to places like that. We all get that. And then with a cemetery being there, it's a bonus, I would assume. Yeah. So then the thought was that
big giant spook magnet.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So the folks would go to the sanatorium probably and the cemetery to execute these dark rituals.
That's my guess. Assuming that the rumors were true.
Right, right. I mean, did you guys find any evidence, pentagrams drawn or any, whatever?
Yeah, among the countless graffiti that was within the walls.
Right.
I talked to my sister. She lives in that area, and apparently they recently tore that down, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. So it no longer exists. I'm sure you could probably find stuff online about it.
So did any of you end up going over there and amongst these egg-shaped things?
No. I guess I didn't feel like hearing Elle scream.
Yeah, or not.
I stayed put.
That is really a unique one, though. I mean, I'm laughing, but that is such a cool one. So this next one has pictures that you included in the email. Now, but you've heard me ask this, and I like to do it over, quote unquote, over the air, so that people know or don't know to look for them. The pictures that you included, is it okay to share those in the show notes so that people can see? Excellent. Okay, so that said, everybody always goes, well, where can I see the pictures? Well, go to the website, intothefrayradio.com, go to this episode. I will put them in the show notes for this episode, and thank you for including those, Ray. But this one is a very unique birthday wish for your daughter.
Yeah. So I'll explain that. So yeah, did they show up okay? Because I know the bright one is unmistakable, but the other two may be too faint.
No, I think that they look really cool. I mean, it definitely makes you go,
Yeah. Okay, so eventually they sold the hospital where I was working in Midtown Atlanta, and it forced me to have to go back to Louisville to work at the Kindred headquarters, which was, as you now know, I've been through pure hell. There's no pain that I've ever felt that compares to being separated from my daughter. There's just nothing like that. So every month I would come up on a weekend to visit her. And so for her 4th birthday, I was there for the weekend to celebrate. And I can't remember I think the pictures include the dates, right? The dates and times.
I don't recall. I think that they did, because I think they were full screenshots.
Yeah, so it was like the beginning. So I was there for the weekend to celebrate my daughter's 4th birthday. And that Saturday, her mom, grandmother, and I and she were at a place called Washington Farms. And it's this place where you can roast marshmallows, and there's all sorts of like fall activities, and really awesome place. And so it's nighttime, and this is, it's a farm out in the middle of nowhere. And I look up to the sky and I mentally say, hey, can you do something so my daughter's mom can witness, and so they don't think I'm crazy? Because I've shared stories with them, and they're crazy stories. So, like, I wanted them to witness something to know that I'm not making crap up. And nothing happens that night. But then the following Sunday, my daughter's uncle throws her a little party. And so my daughter's mom, we're all driving back. It's about 9 p.m. and we're on the highway. And out of nowhere, in the horizon, semi-high, this brilliant light shows up, like brilliant. And then it streaks diagonally to the right, crossing the highway, does like a little wiggle before it disappears behind the trees in the horizon. And my daughter's mom was like, what the hell was that? Was that a shooting star? I'm like, nope. That I think you just saw your first UFO. So that happened that Sunday. Monday, I have to go back to Louisville. And each month that I have to go back, it's always filled with profound depression. And at the time I was staying with a friend of mine from work, I was walking up to the house, and he was walking away, heading to his girlfriend's house, and we just chat. And I was like, you want to contact some aliens? And he's like, sure. So I had I don't know if you're aware that Stephen Greer has a CE5 app that I bought a couple years prior while I was in Georgia, mainly being skeptical, like, you're telling me you have an app to contact aliens? And I was like highly skeptical, but Stephen Greer sounded so brilliant. I was like, I have to, what's $7? So I bought the app, used it once in Georgia. Something did happen, but nothing spectacular. So here we are in Louisville. Roommate and I are about to initiate contact. So we go kind of in his backyard at the end of his driveway where his garage was in the back. And we go through the protocol. And within 5 minutes, and we even half-assed the protocol. So I don't know if you're familiar with what it involves. Basically, there are tones that you play for like 5 minutes. And then you do this meditative thing that's kind of like remote viewing, where you project your consciousness way up and then you vector in, here we are. And then we did a very cursory version of that. And within 5 minutes, we start seeing these shooting stars zipping upward and diagonally, like a bunch of them. So I start taking pictures ground level and kind of sky level, because when I first used it in Georgia, I did it in my apartment complex where I play the tones outside, I meditate on my couch, I go outside, no damn UFO. But these lights show up in this bush that formed like a triangle. These 3 brilliant white lights appeared in the bush and then disappeared. And I thought, that must be a car going down McDaniel Road. But then a car actually does go down McDaniel Road, which was at a whole other level, which told me that the lights in the bush could not have a source that was it was a source. It implied that it worked. So here back in Louisville, because of that, I'm taking pictures to see if anything happens ground level. And the first picture that you saw, where it's the 2 very like wide beams that form an inverted V. Again, we couldn't see that with our eyes, but it showed up on the camera. And then another one captured one of the shooting star looking things by the neighbor's house. And then out of nowhere, this brilliant little ball, maybe the size of a quarter, like 7 or 8 feet in front of us, appears and shoots upward maybe a foot. And it's as bright as lightning, as I described, I believe, and no noise. And miraculously, my phone caught it. And there's no way that I could have anticipated that, because it was a fraction of a second. That's how fast it appeared and disappeared. So my phone at the time, when you hit the button and there's like a pause and then it takes the picture, this thing showed up in that tiny window. So, because like I've had, plenty of time to think about this, where there had to have been some sort of knowledge that its appearance would show up in that tiniest of gaps of between when I hit the button and it capturing a picture. And so it basically showed up the split second after I hit the button for the picture to take. And you could see it's very definite. There's no mistaking that thing was there. And this took maybe over a year before I realized that when that ball showed up, the time that it showed up was 9:27 p.m. and my daughter's birthday is 9/27, because I think the picture was taken October 3rd. So it could be a big coincidence, but considering everything that I've been through, all the stuff that seems to have been going on with my daughter and our family in general, that the suggestion is just too strong that and also the Monday after we celebrate her birthday. I don't know if that it all made sense.
No, that's a cool one. And you guys were playing some of the tones that is in the CE5 app?
Yeah. So it's kind of like a little beacon of a sort. And honestly, like, I'm playing it out of my phone, and to get like that magnificent of a response from something that, like, those shooting stars, there's no way to calculate how high they were. And if you, like, I always think, if there's like a jet fighter that's lower flying by and I'm playing these little tones, I'm not going to exist to whoever's in that jet fighter. Yet there's something infinitely higher that's responding to my little, on my phone. Like, so it kind of makes you think.
How far was that bush away from you guys, the ones that ended up having the lights in it?
That was me alone in Georgia. So
Oh, right.
I was just using that as a reference as to why I was taking pictures ground level. So that bush was maybe, I don't know, 50 feet away. About probably, yeah, maybe 50 feet away. It was close. It's because there's like a little road within the apartment complex, and then there's a grassy area and trees with some bushes. So it wasn't very far. And it was just because I was looking upward. I was expecting a UFO, saw nothing. And then I was like, yeah, I thought it was a bunch of crap. But then those lights appear in the bush, forming a triangle, 3 balls of light that are like on, then off.
Now, what did your friend say about all this, that things are actually going down?
So he was amazed. I don't think he was, I mean, this went beyond what either of us experienced. So he and I have been friends for many years. I got him involved into, I've been a member of this one mystery school called Builders of the Attunement. So we were work buddies. So he has an interest in stuff like that. We both got attuned to Reiki together, all the way up to Reiki Master, and then eventually Karuna Reiki Master. So he's on board with a lot of that stuff. But we were both amazed that it went beyond anything we've experienced individually or together.
So going off that experience where, essentially, for lack of a better term, a UFO or UFOs are interacting with you, and then zipping back to when you're 3 or 4, and there's that gray, and the gray is kind of doing that strange slithery motion, and your ankle was grabbed, and what you described was essentially for lack of a better term, classic gray alien. Do you think that those are one and the same thing, or we just need to open our minds so much more to what these things are, or the fact that all of these things could be interacting with each other at the same time on different planes or dimensions, whatever?
I think there's a connection. I don't know. And I think about this, like, are these beings all on the same team, and they're just doing whatever part it is to show up, or are they representing opposing sides that each have different motives pertaining to me? And I am very loath to say things in that area because it implies that I believe I'm something special. But I'm just pondering the things that I've experienced, and I don't have any definite answers. But based on everything, like, up to this point, it seems like there's something going on that, because I've had some people say, like, well, you have a strong spiritual destiny, so the enemies want to mess with you. And I could see that being an option. I could also see it being one big grand deception. I could see, I don't know if that answered your question, but I don't know. I know what it could seem like.
No, that's a perfect answer. I mean, you're just being honest, and you can. All we have is conjecture because there are
Yeah.
no experts, and anybody that says they have the definitive answer, a huge grain of salt taken with
Yeah.
those types of things, right? And there are very smart people out there with excellent theories, and I'm not saying that's not what I'm talking about. I'm just saying. Okay, so
Yeah. I know what it implies because,
yes,
like, the implication seems consistent.
well,
When you put everything together, the implication seems consistent, but I'm not going to give in to that implication. I'll be
right.
open to it, but I'm not going to jump in, saying, all right, this is what it is.
But that said, you and people that have similar experiences like you do that seem to run the gamut, your opinion is very valuable to me and to others because you have that lens with you can look through and say, okay, there are these different parts and pieces, but I can also step back and look at it from this umbrella standpoint, right? And see it as an overview and go, well, and you already said it could be one thing masquerading as different things. It could be that, or it could be separate things with their own agendas. We just don't know.
Right.
Which either
Yeah.
one is terrifying and makes you go, well, what do you really want then, right? Either one is extremely interesting and terrifying, and sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. It depends on who's experiencing it, of course.
Yeah.
But a lot of things that people come across are not desirable, and people then sleep with the lights on, or
Did
if
that.
they can't, they run to their parents' bed at 3 years old, and they're like, hey mom, I just saw you, but it wasn't you. You know what I mean? Like, this is
Yeah.
not good. And those are life changing. So regardless of what it is or what their intentions are, your perception of it is what it is. So, okay, this next one reminds me just a little bit of something that I bring up a lot, and it's a story that Micah Hanks tells about being out in the woods with a friend of his, and there's this dude in blue overalls, and he's just creeping around in the woods, and I can't remember if he moved places once or if he was always just behind one bush, but he was like crouched down and watching, and it was so off and so
Eerie.
creepy. It reminds me just a little bit, not wholly of that. Yours may be worse, but it's similar. So this Cave Hill, let's talk about this
Oh,
dude.
yeah. Yeah. That's what I thought you were talking about. So I move into a friend of mine's house or apartment, and with her girlfriend. And these two, they're like atheist science. If it's not scientific, it's BS. And so that's their typical way of believing and operating. But eventually, we'll call her K, K and E. So K says, since you've moved in, there's been some weird things going on, and saying like things would be moving and stuff. And I thought, well, that's, not surprising. I was like, things apparently happen around me. So I have a friend who lives in Indiana. We're good friends. And I told her about it. And she's like, I'm going to get a Ouija board, and I'm going to come over with my EMF. And we're going to find out just what the hell is going on. So she comes over. Neither of us know what to do with EMF. So we just did the Ouija board. She bought a brand new one. And so we're in my bedroom, and we ask, who's there? And it starts moving around, and it starts spelling MAMA, 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 over and over. So my friend is like, I think it's a little boy who is looking for his mother. And it just sounded so cheesy. I'm like, I don't think, I, I hope it's not. I hope it's cooler than that, But even though that's tragic, but I didn't buy, and I usually don't buy, children looking for mama. I think there's more to that, as I believe a lot of people do. So it ended there. That's as far as we got. But then the next day, so it was a Sunday, nice sunny Sunday. So we decided to go to Cave Hill Cemetery. And she wanted to find her grandmother, I think her grandmother's grave. So we're parked in her Jeep. She finds it. She has the Ouija board with her. And I was like, hey, we should try that here. So we popped the back of the Jeep down so we could sit on it, and we're doing the Ouija board, and it is going crazy. It's like whipping G0, G0, G0. And I was like, do you want us to go? Yes, G0, G0. And it's just flying all over the place. And I said, calm down. And then it spells out okay, and then slows down. And I said, is it okay that we're here? No, G0, G0. And it sped back up. So again, this is like very sunny, clear, cloudless day. We see that this older guy is walking in our direction from the center of the cemetery, and he's wearing like a tracksuit, something that you'd see, the mall walkers, they have the jumpsuits.
Yeah.
There's something nice, bright and colorful. So he's walking in our direction, but doesn't like walk directly towards us. And he gets close, and he maintains maybe, I don't know, 15 yards away, not close, not far. And he's singing in this like falsetto, not singing, but like, I don't even know what to call it, but it's, and I'm going to do, my impersonations are usually pretty accurate. So he's making this noise. And then he would go behind the shed that was there, and then you would hear him say, I wish you would just get out of here. Then we'd pop back out and like pace back and forth while looking at us. Go back behind the shed. I wish you would just leave. Like that's exactly what happened. So my friend is freaked out, and she's like, let's get out of here. And I, just like Elle at the sanatorium, I was like, I'm going to go up to this dude. And I wasn't going to get physical or anything, but like I had this urge to confront him for like no reason. I wasn't going to like bully him or anything. I just had this urge to go up to him. And I can't even accurately describe the real reason other than he needs to be faced. So my friend, I didn't, because like Elle, she wasn't going to scream, but she was just like, you are not doing that. So we leave. And a couple days later, she calls me. It's after work. And she's on, so it's a three-way between me, her, and or it's more her friend, more my acquaintance. I'll use her. She went by Wolfie. So a little backstory on Wolfie. My friend used to work at the craps table on the gambling boat in Indiana. Didn't know Wolfie. Wolfie comes up to my friend and said, Ferdinand has a message for you. And Ferdinand was my friend's dead grandfather. And she mentioned another woman named Mary. And so my friend is like, I don't know who Mary is, but Ferdinand is my dead grandfather. So my friend tells her mom, like, this woman came up to me, talked about granddad, Ferdinand. And that's not a common name. And she's like, but she wasn't 100% because she mentioned some woman named Mary. And I don't know any Mary. And then her mom's like, well, Mary was Ferdinand's mistress.
Oh, wow.
My friend didn't know about it. So my friend and Wolfie became friends. And that evening when she calls me, Wolfie had called her to check up on her. And then Wolfie starts going off. So Wolfie's a very powerful psychic, very powerful psychic. So she was just, oh, my cat is freaking out.
Oh. Getting vibes.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, he's doing some funny acrobatics.
Uh-oh.
So Wolfie called her just to like, hey, I haven't talked to you. And then out of nowhere, Wolfie's like, what is in your house? It is evil. You have to get rid of it. And my friend's like, what do you mean? She's like, it's glowing green. It's in the left-hand corner. You have to get it out of your house. So my friend's like, it's a picture of my dogs. You want me to get rid of my dog picture? She's like, no, go to your window. Go to your window. Are you by the window? She's like, yeah. Now look, it's glowing green. It's evil and you have to get out of your house. So she goes over to the kitchen window, looks to her left, and it's the Ouija board, which was a glow-in-the-dark Ouija board.
Holy smokes.
Yeah. So I'm now on the phone with them, and my friend, so she's freaking out. So she had her house was built brand new. So there is no wiring problems, and the lights were flickering, and she's in Indiana. I'm in Louisville. I couldn't do anything. So she's like, my lights are, freaking out. And so we tell Wolfie what happened with my roommate saying, weird stuff happened, Ouija board, and then the dude in the cemetery. And then Wolfie says he wasn't real. He was evil. And we're like, but he was, and then when Wolfie gets frustrated, she's like, dude, come on. He is freaking out. Sorry.
That's okay.
He just did
he doesn't like this story. What
Evil
did he
Knievel leap.
No way.
So we're telling Wolfie the story about everything. And when we get to the part with the guy, she's immediately interjects, he's not real. He's evil. We're like, yeah, but it was daytime and he was wearing a track. And she's like, I know you think he was real, but he was not. He was evil. And then the idea, so Wolfie is the type where if you try to like chime in with your opinion, if you're right, she'll confirm. If not, she has this like monotone tone when she talks and answers when she's like in that mode. So as she's saying that this dude wasn't real and was evil, it reminded me of a dream that I had maybe a day or two prior, where I was facing kind of a local celebrity. He and I were acquaintance / friends. And he, if anyone's from Louisville, they'll probably know who I'm referring to. But he was this very interesting dude who wrote for a periodical in Louisville. He was a black belt in judo, and he was a little nuts. Great guy. He's in a dream, but his eyes they were like this greenish, hazily, really beautiful, but effing evil. Within the dream, I knew that I had to fight him, but in my thinking within the dream, I thought, I am not entitled to fight him. And then a phone rings and a male voice says, you've been chosen. And I look at my friend, we'll call him C, and him being all evil and stuff, he nods with an evil smile saying, yes, you've been chosen. You are meant to fight me. So that dream popped up as we're talking to Wolfie. And I thought, my desire to confront him, I was like, is that because, and I told her the dream, and I said, does that mean I'm destined to fight evil? And she says, that is true. And that's all she said. And it was like that authoritative monotone. I'm not saying I believe it, but I'm just putting everything together as these things continue to imply certain things.
Yeah, that is beyond creepy. And at least both of you saw him and heard him, and you're reenacting what he sounded like just sent chills up my spine. It really
I
did.
get goosebumps retelling that.
Oh, that one's so creepy. So was there ever any label given to what he was, just beyond he wasn't real and he was evil?
Nothing beyond that. Not to Wolfie or from Wolfie.
Maybe you didn't want to know, right? But okay, so I'm going to ask your opinion again because you've had a lot of stuff happen. What do you think he was?
Well, like, is it okay if I jump up to what I believe I referred to what happened, I think 2 years ago, 2022?
Absolutely. Please do.
So, because I think it still ties into it. And I'd like to say things have been boring as far as like not much happening. I mean, I'm always like having a lot of like psychic development and spiritual stuff based on my practices, but nothing really out of the ordinary happens other than like synchronicities or me tapping into things regarding my daughter and her mom, but nothing outside of that compared to my history. And one Saturday evening, I'm playing my guitar. It's unplugged, so it's not making a lot of noise. And I have a Bluetooth speaker is, just sitting there. And out of nowhere, this voice comes out of it and says my name. Again, this is going to be nearly exact. I hear Ray come out of it. So something like based with like the fighting, like it feels like these things do have a target on me. It feels that. But the thing with the speaker thing is I didn't feel a bad vibe. It was just ultra creepy. And it was almost like I was trying to manufacture fear, but it still freaks me out because other presences one in particular, it was accompanied by a tangible hatred and malevolence that was probably the mightiest thing I've ever felt being directed towards me. This didn't contain that, but I was addressed by name, and that again would imply that I have some role into dealing with these things.
And I know that low, grumbly voices can be all kind of sound the same in a certain way, but do you feel like it sounded like that creepy dude at the cemetery?
No, that was different. Like when his voice went deep, like from sing-songy to deep.
Yeah, like when he was actually talking to you guys, like, get out.
Yeah, it was totally different. His was more like, it was almost like the dude in the cemetery sounded like he was forcing his voice to go deep. It was like
okay,
almost contrived. Like it went from, I wish you would get out of here.
Ugh, God.
But yeah, but the speaker was just Ray. It was like straight out of a horror movie.
And then nothing else happened though. So that happened.
Nope.
And you're strumming away on your guitar, and you didn't have weird dreams or hear knocking or nothing else.
No, I called my daughter's mom, and first I almost ran out of my apartment in my underwear.
Yeah.
But I collected myself. I called my daughter's mom, and I'm trying to like explain what happened. I was like, my speaker and blah blah, and she thought that my speaker blew up in my face, and I almost prefer that would have happened, but I explained, and I spent the night on her couch. But it speaking earlier about sleeping with the lights on, I slept with the lights on. I'm still sleeping on my couch. Like for some reason, even though it happened while I was sitting on the couch, I feel less vulnerable during sleep on the couch. So I can sleep in the dark, but I'm still on the damn couch.
You mean to this day?
Yep. Yeah, because I've been attacked a few times during sleep, where if it just feel like, I think maybe subconsciously, like my back resting on the back of the couch. It's kind of like, a mob boss sleep, only goes in restaurants with his back towards the corner of the wall.
Right.
I think it's along those lines.
Wow. See, that comes up a lot, sleeping the lights on, or sleeping a certain way in a bed, or choosing not to sleep in a bed for certain reasons. I mean, that's...
Yeah, and trust me, I am not proud of that.
No, it's not making fun at all. That just speaks to just how much you guys go through and how it changes your daily routines.
Yeah.
And that's not fun. That's not a fun way to live. That's not nice.
It's kind of all I've known, really.
Right.
Especially like dealing with my spiritual pursuits. It's almost like it comes with the territory. I mean, not for everyone, because you have all these new agers that don't experience that side, to my knowledge, just based on those that I've encountered and those that I have listened to. Yeah, it seems like it might be a bit of a minority for those who there's kind of like this metaphysical torture aspect to it.
So this next one, now, did you feel like sharing this or the Buddhist dream?
That's a short one. Again, it's actually kind of strange now that I think about it. So again, and when people start talking about dreams, especially like I tend to turn my ears off. I'll share it. It's short. So I was in this building that was dilapidated, and it was filled with these Buddhists, and there was a problem where these Buddhist monks were all having trouble being possessed by demons. And one of them attempts to get away, runs. I chase him, and he stops by the stairwell where he would have got, like, he couldn't be let out within the scheme of the dream. And I this creeps me out, and it fills me with 1,000 questions. I try, me being Mr. Reiki man and magician, I try to exorcise him from, several feet away. And so he stops, and his face alters between being confused, like, what the hell am I doing here, to this evil demonic grin, almost like there's this battle between who the monk really was and the demon possessing him. And as I put my hand up to send something, this massive invisible force surprises me from behind, lifts me up and back, and I'm fighting. I'm in like battle mode. And this deep voice says, "You can't do that without my permission." And I'm trying to like kick the crap out of this thing. But then I woke up.
I mean, that's a good time to wake up, I would say. But now, and I know that people out there go, well, I don't know why people bring up dreams or why you guys talk about dreams, but exactly. A lot of times they do have meaning and they can tie in, whether it's from something previous or, something upcoming later on in life. Dreams,
it feels significant, but I would understand people's skepticism.
But it is worth mentioning, as you said, and I totally agree with that. They are worth mentioning because, and there are people out there that might even pick up on something that we didn't at some point, and go, well, you guys are missing this point, ties into this encounter or this sighting, whatever it may be. That happens too. So, no, thank you for going over that.
Yeah, like I said, I will talk about anything.
So the next thing on the list is Amityville doorknob.
That's another one-offer, short one. My buddy that I was staying with in Louisville, we were just hanging out in the living room, flipping through the channels, and Amityville came on, and so we're watching that. And after a couple minutes, we hear the shaking of the doorknob. It was one of the old, like the glass doorknob. His house was a little older, and you just hear it like chugga chugga chugga, which was his middle room, dining room, which had a door that led up to the attic. So it was that door. So it wasn't far away. And I immediately thought it was one of the cats messing with the door. And so his one cat was on his lap and the other one was on the couch that I was on. So I'm thinking that sometimes movies can attract things. I've actually experienced that on 2 occasions where not to where something caused a physical phenomenon. But I do remember watching, I can't remember the name of the movie, but a friend of mine and I watched that movie with Anthony Hopkins where he's a priest that gets possessed. And it was such a cheesy movie. It was so predictable. There's literally zero creep factor. Maybe my standards are a little high, but it was annoyingly not scary. Yet, when we finished the movie, there was a definite presence in the room. And it didn't cause anything, but I do tend to be, and I'm loath to use the word, I'm sensitive to, I'm a sensitive. There's always a pause. I'm a sensitive, when people are describing, but I do detect things like that. And after that stupid movie, something did show up. And I think something like that happened with the Amityville. Same thing happened in one of the Conjuring movies. Again, it was entertaining, but not scary yet. Something seemed to want to hang out after the movie was over.
And did you have to, in both cases, kind of say out loud, "Get out of here, you're not welcome"?
I probably did, being the ritual magician I believe myself to be. I'll sometimes just throw out a Hebrew name of God, either Yod He Vav He, Yeshua. I'll do like an intonation, because that worked getting rid of. I referred to that mighty force that had all that malevolent and hatred. It fled quite rapidly just using one of the Hebrew God names I used. Sometimes I'll draw a pentagram. I don't remember what I used in either of those two cases, and I believe I did nothing for the Amityville one. Just my friend and I were like, "Well, that was weird."
Was that the original Amityville Horror with James Brolin and Margot Kidder?
Yep, the first one.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I'm unfamiliar with actors' names. I'll just say it was the first one.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, it was. That was creepy. I got to say, even though it was embellished, it was, or I'll say, inaccurate.
Yeah, good. It was good for what it was for, which was
Yeah.
entertainment. But yeah, still.
Not to go off the topic too much, but I heard an interview of the one son that lived there who has a hard time with people saying that it was a hoax because they're going off of the information from the book and the movie, where the window blew out in the movie and in the book. And people are like, well, it's clearly not true because it has the original glass. And he said, well, that's because the window didn't blow out. The window opened itself, so that's why I said it, even though it was embellished, I think something happened. I just think the way it was portrayed in the movie opens a strong case for it being a hoax.
Well, and honestly, I hate when liberties are taken like that, because to me, and even just what you said there about the window, having it blow out versus having it open, whether it be, slowly or quickly, to me, that's even creepier. I don't know. To me, there's more to work
Yeah.
with. There's more to work with there than having it explode and the glass comes out. And these folks just, with these movies, they just screw them up so bad.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they the Hollywood element, they're brilliant at cheapening things.
They show too much. They show way too much. It's the not seeing. It's the subtleties that they just do not nail at all. But okay, so I see that's a tangent I love, because then I'll get on a soapbox because I love movies. But okay, so next up we have the Turkey Airport and Norfolk Coffee Shop.
Oh, yeah, that's an interesting one. So my last duty station was a NATO position in Norfolk, Virginia. And occasionally I'd have to go on these NATO conferences. And this one was in Turkey. So I was in the Istanbul airport. In one of the gate areas, there's like nobody there except this one couple. They looked like someone that I knew from my childhood, like when my parents together when we were in New York. And I go up to them and I address them by name, and again, I don't remember the name. I'll just say Barbara and Jeff. I think that's what I said in the email, because I don't remember exactly what I called them. And that was their names, and they were from New York. So I was asking them, do you know Ray? And they're like, no. And I was like, do you know anyone from Monroe, New York? Do you know? So I started naming all these people, like Middletown, New York, just the places where I've lived in the Orange County area. I'm almost fighting, trying to hang on to the familiarity that I initially had with them, that caused me to believe I recognized them. And as I'm struggling to come up with the right question for them to say, that's where I know you're from, their familiarity was literally dissolving before my eyes, if I could use that as an accurate description. And eventually, there's just no question, I don't know who the hell these people are, and they don't know who I am. So I walked away. What was that? And I know they were like, exactly like, what was that? So that was the turkey incident. And then a similar thing happened I used to go to this coffee shop, First Colony coffee shop in Norfolk. That was like my daily hangout. And I would sit at the bar, drink coffee, and talk to everybody. And this dude was there, never met him before. I don't even know what the topic of the discussion was, but I had such a good feeling from this guy that I was like, I love this dude. Like, I want to be his friend. And we didn't exchange numbers. And this was, 90s. I didn't have a cell phone. So I just assumed I'll probably bump into him again here. So maybe the following weekend, my girlfriend at the time and we go to this little tap house in Norfolk. And I believe I see this guy that I met at the coffee shop. I was excited to introduce her to him because I just really like this dude. So I call out to him, and I can't remember the name. I'll just say, hey, Sean. And he's like, yeah. And I was like, yeah, this is Amy. And he's looking at me like, oh, so who are you? Like, he's not saying that, but I'm thinking I'm introducing, because I know I told, I used a name again. I was excited to introduce A to this guy. And so then the familiarity thing started so it was the guy's name, and he stopped looking like what I thought I remembered from the guy from the coffee shop. And then the familiarity just dissolved. And then A looks at me like, I'm going to kill you. That was embarrassing. And so we both parted awkwardly again. So two times I get the right name. The couple in Turkey was linked to someone I thought I remembered from my New York childhood. And then this guy, I thought it was the guy from the coffee shop. Got the right name of the actual person. And then he just stopped reminding me of the coffee shop guy. Because it just, like, my mind made the connection for some reason.
But that's so strange to have such a surety about it and then to have it fade away.
Yeah, and it's a strange sensation. It's only happened twice that I can remember, but to literally feel your familiarity dissolve while you're observing it happen. I don't know how else to describe that other than that's the best way I could do it.
Yeah, those are extremely strange occurrences. Very unique, by the way. I don't know that I've ever
I have
quite
a bunch
heard
of
that either.
one-offs.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I like that. I talk to lots of people that have those. You know about how that rolls. So, okay, so next up is Karuna Reiki attunement. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, that's another interesting one. So my friend and I, I'll call him C. He and I got attuned to the Yasui Reiki. That's what the most popular lineage of Reiki in the United States. by my friend's ex-wife. So she was a Reiki master. And so we had an opportunity, because like Reiki attunements can be very expensive. And she was willing to do it for an exceedingly reasonable price. I'm like, dude, we got to do this. So we went through, all the levels. Within maybe a year, we went from level 1 to Reiki master teacher. And then down the road, we had the opportunity to get attuned to Karuna Reiki. So I'll try to keep it short, but the backstory of Karuna. Now, first of all, when I first heard of Reiki, and again, my experiences, my delvings into the arcane, practicing ritual magic, when I first heard about Reiki, I thought, this sounds like a bunch of horse crap. I first heard about it in the 90s when I lived in Virginia Beach. I used to go to this health food store, and they had a bookstore. And I read a little pamphlet on it. I was like, there's just no way. This sounds stupid. And I could be a jerk, Shannon. I apologize.
No, you're being honest, and I appreciate that. This is good. No.
So this woman that worked at the bookstore, very lovely woman. I love this woman. We'll call her Jay. She's like, oh, your throat chakra's blocked. Do you mind if I give you a little Reiki? I'm like, okay, Jay. And so she puts her hand around my throat and stuff, and my entire body starts vibrating. And I'm like, I know I am not making this up. So I was proven wrong. And from that moment, I was like, I got to check out this Reiki. But it was always like wicked expensive. So my friend's ex-wife allows me and C to get attuned. And now within that lineage, the Grand Master of Reiki, his name is William Rand, his Reiki masters started to pick up these additional symbols that eventually got organized into the Karuna Reiki system. And because I'm a jerk, I considered that with large dollops of skepticism. But then I had the opportunity to get attuned. I'm like, I'm going to check it out. So it was our Reiki teacher's Reiki teacher who attuned both me, C, and my original Reiki teacher. So we three were getting attuned to Karuna Reiki. So we get attuned, and the process is so like, it doesn't take any time at all. I don't know how familiar you are with it. And to me, it is probably one of the most consistent ways to prove that magic is real. Because when you are not attuned to Reiki and then you get attuned, especially in the higher degrees, there is no question as to like when you didn't have Reiki to when you do have Reiki. It's subjective, but to me, in my experience, and anyone who's ever been attuned that I know of have that, there's a marked, unmistakable difference when you are given that. So after the attunement, we go through different exercises and little meditations, and eventually we get to practice on each other, each taking a turn to be on the massage table. So there's this one where the three of us were sitting on these little fold-out chairs, and we were about to do this one particular exercise, and I'm sitting on the left, and our eyes are closed, and I feel a tug on my shirt, like on the right, and I thought it was the teacher wanting my attention, like, hey, like, I don't know what she would want me to do, but it was like, hey, like a little tug 3 or 4 times. And I opened my eyes to be like, yeah. And she is nowhere near me. She's like on the other side of the room. It's like, oh, I must have imagined that. So we do the exercise, and then we switch spots where I'm in the middle and my original teacher's on my left and C is on my right. And again, close my eyes, and I feel a tug on the left side of my shirt, close to my waist, which is the opposite side of the first one. Again, unmistakable, like, hey, trying to get someone's attention. And I open my eyes, no one is anywhere near me. And so there's like this physical thing that happened. So then we go into where we are practicing on each other. I'm lying on the table, and C is at my head, and what is her name? So I can give her an initial. I can't believe I can't remember her name. These initials get confusing. Anyway, she's at my abdomen. So, and there's no physical contact when you're doing Karuna Reiki. None. You just hover your hands over and allow it to do its thing. So my eyes are closed, and I feel a definite, like a pointer finger caressing from the center of my forehead down to the side temple over and over. A physical finger touch caressing my head. And I'm like, I know C is not doing that, because that would just be profoundly awkward. And with his personality, like, I just don't, that would not happen. So I just kind of rolled with it. So there are these like physical phenomena that's happening. And this one might, I'm reluctant to share this. I'll let you be the judge, because it's funny in my mind, but it borders on inappropriate. So, M is her initial. So M's turn to lie on the table, and C is at her abdomen, and I'm at her head again. And as our teacher's in the corner observing us working on M. So all of a sudden, my hands start moving on their own, like Ouija board style. And so my hands were started at the crown of her head, like maybe 4 inches above it. And then my hands are being moved, like I said, almost, it's like a subtle impulse to move. That's not my own conscious decision. And it's slowly going to the sides of her head. So my hands are by her ears, and they continue downward, and they appear to be heading towards her breast area. And I'm like, this is not happening. So I'm starting to panic, because it feels like the spirit of Reiki are going to put my hands in a very questionable spot. And I'm looking at my teacher in the corner, and she's just paying attention. And thank God they stopped and rested in the front of her throat. But it looked like it was going into a direction that I did not know how I was going to explain that one. But they stopped at her throat.
Yeah, I'm not very familiar with Reiki at all. It's something that I have been meaning to look more into. But I mean, how closely related would Reiki be to, like, if you were going to get into Reiki, wouldn't you need to, in a way, be good at meditation first? Or is that not accurate?
It cut off a little bit. Would you need to be good at what?
At meditation?
No. I think it could help, but when those symbols are literally psychically implanted in you, that's one of the things I found and continue to find interesting with Reiki. Because before that, I would do energetic stuff from things that I would learn from like Golden Dawn magic, like the middle pillar ritual, where you move the energy through breath and visualizing it move with your breath. So there's a lot of effort, where Reiki, it's almost like turning on a switch. And sometimes it happens spontaneously, because like even my sister sent me a picture of something like her Reiki studio, and it spontaneously turned on my Reiki. Like my hands just started heating up. Or it seems to have an intelligence, and it doesn't require you to, it could help, because like even when you learn Reiki, there are like meditations that are recommended. I don't think it's necessary to be proficient at Reiki.
What if, asking for a friend, of course, what if you're about as sensitive as a rock and you wanted to get into Reiki? Wouldn't it be infinitely more difficult to move through the steps to get anywhere with it, or no?
I could only go by like theoretical ideas where, in my own experience, the the spirits behind Reiki are aware of you more than you are aware of yourself. If you were meant to do Reiki, that's already been agreed upon. Where if there is such blockages that would prevent that sensitivity, and you were meant to, I believe, and for those that I would imagine that would go from the sensitivity of a rock to being open to perceiving that in whatever level could be jarring. It might be a gradual unfolding, and that can manifest in just the higher levels not being available at the time, where you might get spoon fed into it, or they might think, yeah, let's just open all the gates. It's I don't think it's really predictable, but I believe that, or they could remain imperceptive, that may not have any impact on whether it's, they could still be sending stuff and not feel that it's being sent, whereas another person might detect it, where the operator is totally like not feeling anything. I think that's a possibility with Reiki. I think, just from what I've learned, it doesn't depend on belief, because there were people that did not believe it and they got their butt kicked by it when I, gave a little zap. And then, like, the friend of Brett Butler, that guy is as sensitive as a rock, believes the heck out of it, doesn't feel a damn thing.
Or
So there's no there's no rule of thumb, really. There are several, but there's a great degree of unpredictability.
well, and I suppose the entire reason that you ended up going in for this Karuna treatment was the fact that this woman Jay put her hands on your throat, and then you felt that vibration. So you, at that point, and your inflection was perfect in your voice, you're like, okay, sure, let's do this. And then
Yeah.
something cool happened, right?
I was more polite than that.
No, I get it.
In reality.
I get it, but I was
okay,
grinning
Jay.
when you said that, because I get that. I get the initial reaction to someone saying, "Oh, this is blocked." You're like, "Oh." But when it comes to Reiki, and forgive my 101, Reiki 101 questions, but when you're talking about, feeling a finger from the middle of your forehead to your temple, and then feeling your shirt being tugged, are these things that can commonly happen during various Reiki treatments?
Now, before Karuna, I've given a number of Reiki treatments, and it's sometimes people don't feel anything, sometimes people feel vibrations, sometimes people feel various things. The Karuna is when it kicked up to beings showing up that are felt by out like either me as the one giving the Reiki, or the person being treated. For example, I gave a treatment, a Karuna treatment, to a friend who she had previous Reiki experiences, but not by me. And so at the end, I asked, so how was it, And she, not expecting this at all, she said, that was scary. I'm like, what? Now, I have to go back. So when I described my hand movements when I was treating M, that developed into a very, where the movements, first of all, they freaked me out because I thought I was getting possessed. But then I started working with it, and it developed into this very intricate set of movements where, and this Doesn't happen for anybody because my Reiki teacher, my Karuna Reiki teacher, has never heard of this. But for me, for some reason, I get moved when I give a treatment. I will get moved as if I'm performing Tai Chi around the person. And I don't know Tai Chi, but I get my whole body will move. And it's almost like I'm doing an interpretive dance in this Tai Chi like way where sometimes I can interpret what's going on symbolically by those movements. Whether I get it correct or not, I don't know. But I could see how sometimes it looks like I'm almost reenacting what is being done and why. Doesn't happen often. Like I said, a lot of unpredictability. Some things happen on one treatment where they'll never happen again. So now the person who said she was scared, it's because she felt physical hands on her head and she thought that I put my hands on her head. And when she opened my eyes, I'm halfway up across the room doing my weird little Tai Chi dance, nowhere near her. So it freaked her out a little bit. She handled it well. I think she was just shocked. She didn't run screaming, but
Right.
she was just, that was scary.
She might have thought about it, but she didn't execute it. So that's good.
It's like, would it be rude to flee?
Like, oh, you're supposed to be over here because I can feel this. What are you doing over there? That's cool, though. That's wow, that's impressive. Maybe I need to start finally looking into that a little bit more. But okay, so let's talk about the 2009 UFO, and we'll wrap up part one with that.
Okay. So 2009, I have a work friend who she and her husband were very much into the young adult novels, and she would always loan me books, and I'd enjoy them, and we talk about them. And she gave me one, The Magicians, which there's, I think, a Netflix show based on the book. And I didn't have time to read this book. And this is kind of important. So I held it for maybe 4 months and not even touching it. So November of 09 rolls around, and that's when the movie The Fourth Kind came out. And so a friend of mine and I, we were just thrilled, at the previews. We're like, this looks terrifying. So we go to see it. And it was so terrifying because I don't know if you've seen that movie.
Absolutely. I love that movie.
Yeah. So seeing that how they hammered it into you, this is true, this happened. And by the end of it, my friend and I looked at each other. I was like, I am never going to sleep again.
Yep.
Because so for me, because you know how all that Sumerian crap was belching out of those people?
Yep.
So that's related to all the stuff that I'm into, all the ritual magic. And I was like, am I inviting this crap? And so it stirred a fear in my core being that I've never had before. So this is the only time where if something is ever debunked or as like revealed as a hoax, I'm always disappointed. However, with this movie, I needed this to be a hoax. So days after that, I kept looking up, was this a bunch of crap? And I heard people's arguments that said it was, but I needed something airtight because I was about to lose my freaking mind because I didn't want to invite this stuff. And which I thought was a huge potential based on the roots of where the magic that I was studying and practicing came from, like Babylon and whatnot. So while at work, I remembered an incident. So I'm trying to find these debunkers. Should have been working, but I needed to do this. I remembered an incident roughly in 97 when I was in Norfolk, and I referred to it earlier, where that hatred was emanating, and that was during a sleep paralysis episode. So back then, so as I'm looking for debunking, I remembered the sleep paralysis from 97. So stupidly, I look up sleep paralysis and find that there's like a strong connection to alien abduction. I was like, that's exactly what I did not want to hear right now. So basically what happened in 97, I was taking a nap and I wake up totally paralyzed. And there's this, I couldn't see it, but I knew it was in the doorway of my living room, emanating the most tangible hatred and malevolence that I have ever experienced, like pure evil. And that's when all I could do, since I couldn't move, I mentally threw pentagrams at it, blue flaming pentagrams, while mentally stating Yud He Vav He Yeshua. And then it fled, and it hugged the wall as it rushed out of the room, as if it was trying to be as far away from me as possible as it exited. And then I was able to move, and I rolled over. I said, "Demon's gone," and I resumed my nap, which is peculiar in itself, but I'll try to trim the details. So I'm remembering that while looking up the debunking. So I look up sleep paralysis and then related to abductions. I'm like, crap, I just made it worse. So then I go on a smoke break with my friend S. So I meet her outside. She randomly gives me this little red leaf. This is, fall time. And it was gorgeous, this tiny little red leaf. And I was like, thank you. Stuck it in my pocket, had her cigarette, went back up to resume work. Then, end of the day, before heading home, I always go to this coffee shop, and I'm finally reading that book from months prior, The Magicians. So I'm beginning a chapter called The Beast, and it's the scene within the book is Quentin, the character, tries to mess up the teacher teaching a spell. And when the teacher messes up, I don't know what he did, some sabotage. When the teacher messes up, all the kids in the class or people in the class are frozen. They're paralyzed. And this evil dude shows up with these leaves that obscure his face. And long story short, he's evil. He ends up eating one of the students. And the fact that he's trying to break in using magic, and Quentin spots, as he's and all his classmates are frozen, spots a little red leaf. In his mind, he just says, all I want is one more minute to look at this little red leaf, as the faculty is trying to. This was less than an hour than S giving me a little red leaf after I had just looked up sleep paralysis. So to me, it was like a kind of a sinister, and it might sound like I'm reaching, but in my mind at the time, it seemed to connect. So I had this terrifying feeling that they were coming for me for weeks. And so I was living in a different part of town with the same two roommates, K and E. And so we lived in the Crescent Hill area of Louisville, one street over from the reservoir, very pretty area. And I was freaking out where I was certain they were coming for me. And in my bedroom, I would see like little dots of light where they shouldn't be. I saw like a rope of light appear on my bed and then quickly disappear, like laser pointers with no source. And I literally thought I was losing my mind because I couldn't continue practicing the magic that I relied on for years. I couldn't trust that. I couldn't trust my studies. I felt totally vulnerable, and there was no safe, I wasn't going to turn to religion because like that wouldn't, I don't believe like in that. So I felt totally exposed, totally unable to protect myself. And eventually December rolls around, and my roommate Kay, 3 a.m, knocks on my bedroom door, and she says, there's something strange in the sky, and you could probably see it outside your bedroom window. My bedroom window opened to the reservoir, so that there's a little gray building in the horizon, just literally 1 block over. And there's this huge ship hovering slightly above and to the left of the gray building, 1 street over. 3 blinking lights, totally silent, but if it were to make a noise, it would be like beep, 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 beep. So here they were. Now, so Kay, she was driving home from her friend's house, she saw a triangular shaped ship flying too low, and it wasn't going in a straight line. So she knew there was something abnormal about that. Plus, she had the sensation that it was following her. She freaks out, rushes home, runs in, wakes me up so I could be terrified with her. So we go out into the back porch, and it's still there. Again, no noise, and it's large, very large. So I recommend, let's find online, see if someone's reporting. And I'm freaking out because I was expecting this weeks ago. I was feeling this. I didn't know it was going to happen like this, but this is like the culmination of all that paranoia from weeks prior. So eventually I go upstairs after about 20 minutes, and it's still there, but to the right of the building. And the thing is, I don't remember going to sleep because of all the paranoia and terror I felt continually for those weeks. I know I wasn't comfortable going to sleep when I could see it from my bed. But so I don't know what happened. Other than, I don't even know what happened the next day. I don't know what, because I just know that I wouldn't have gone to sleep. And so roughly a year later, so Kay, being the atheist and skeptic, our friend, another friend of ours, moved in with us who's already familiar with the story. And I wanted Kay to tell a different Jay the story of what happened, to kind of force her to describe something she doesn't believe in. And she starts describing, well, I was driving from Kay's house, and I saw this thing in the sky, and I ran in and, freaked me out. And she stopped there, and I was like, well, tell her about the big ship. She's like, I don't remember a big ship. And I started getting angry because I thought she was just being difficult to cling to her cynicism. And then it became clear that she doesn't remember. She only remembers a portion of that. And I'll introduce another person that could go into the next time we talk. A friend of mine who was a bandmate at the time, who was repeatedly abducted, and being friends with him, a lot of crazy stuff happened. So I told him about Kay's response. I was like, I think they made her forget. And he, in his ominous tone, says, eventually she'll just forget the whole thing. And then that was that. So that's the 2009 UFO story. There's more to it that will involve other things that I can talk in the next time we chat.
Well, and unfortunately, that friend that you just said, he said that phrase is probably right. That's how these things tend to roll sometimes. So,
yeah,
about just not only this, what you just shared, but the UFO subject in general, and just bear with me while I do my word salad here for a second. But, as far as what Kay mentioned, she essentially said she felt like it was meant for her to see, and it was following her. Well, she didn't say it was meant for her to see, but that's where I'm going with it, is she felt like it was following her. And part of me goes, well, it's because it was meant for you guys to see, the two of you. And then would other people even see that if they went outside, right? Was that for anybody else but you guys? And then, and this is something that's been discussed. It's not the first time anyone's ever said this, but, what does that mean for the phenomena itself? That it's tied into consciousness somehow. And as you said, you had this paranoia because of the fourth kind, and you had been kind of dabbling in a way in some of that, not to that exact extent, but enough to where it made you uncomfortable. So what does that all mean then for the phenomena itself?
I don't know. Plus, when you tie in the whole roughly 1997 incident, bringing it up to 2009, where it almost seems that whatever is behind it was aware of what would happen in 2009 from 97 and all the events, not to mention the stuff in the book, which again, I admit might sound like a reach, but in my mind at the time, it came crashing through my face in a very uncomfortable and abrupt way.
Right. Right. And it also proves that whatever this is has a time doesn't mean anything for them. And they have very
Yep.
long memories and they know you very well.
Also the idea of willpower.
Yes.
Like personal free will
Mm-hmm.
is what I meant to say.
Right. Yes. Yeah. And
Like it
that
threw all
all
those questions in my mind.
right. And it all just ties back into consciousness.
Yep. Around like within a day or so, I overheard the barista at the coffee shop that I go to. I overhear him saying that he woke up that night, the night that the ship showed up, and that he felt that someone was trying to break into his apartment.
Mm.
And he lived on the opposite side of, so it's like Frankfurt Avenue. So I lived on the Crescent Hill side. He lived in the Clifton area. So I overheard him saying that. Now my friend, the one whose ex-husband, or the ex-husband of my Reiki teacher, my friend / bandmate, he lives in the Clifton area close to the barista. He was saying that night he woke up because he felt someone was trying to get into his house. So he wakes up and he goes to the end of his hall at the beginning of his living room. He sees a black sedan running, but with the lights off, not parked, but like stopped in front of his house. The second he steps foot in his living room, the car takes off. And that was the same night that the barista felt like someone was getting into his apartment, and my buddy felt like someone was getting into his house.
Oh, that's very interesting. So everyone is having some sort of a strange experience, but they're all extremely different.
Yeah. And related.
Related,
mind,
yeah,
related.
but not nice. It's not angels coming to visit you and singing you songs with harps and things.
No, this was the most sinister string of synchronicities. I've had synchronicities for a very long time, and they've always been either inconsequential yet still neat, some with some meaning, but this just felt sinister, like beyond measure.
Now, the barista with the break-in, did he say that someone was trying to get into a window, break down the door? What was the situation there?
I didn't hear him explain anything other than he had the sense that someone was trying to get into his apartment.
Okay.
So as far as like whether it was a window or a door, it was just a
Right.
sense that someone was trying to get in.
And that's a terrifying feeling. That's grab the guns and let's hope we don't have to
Yeah.
handle business. You know, that's horrifying.
Yeah, it was a difficult period, and it seems like throughout my life I have little pockets of time where I sleep with the lights on for roughly 4 months.
So it'll go in 4-month cycles.
I say that mainly in jest, but it's probably somewhat accurate.
Have you written down, are they heavier certain months and then it's 4 months on and then these months off? Is there a pattern there? Like when did it start?
Wish that I kept better track. I don't know. I just know that the 2009 one began in November because of the forthcoming movie coming out, and I don't know exactly which day in December that the craft showed up. Yeah, I'll have to send you some more pictures, because my friend bandmate who said Kay will eventually forget the whole thing, he, during that period, I don't think it was on the exact day, he was told, like in his mind, to go outside, and because they were here, and he told his girlfriend to grab a camera and to take pictures and to get video and all this stuff up. So she took, I believe, 54 pictures and got 2 videos. Long story short, when they uploaded it into the laptop, you could see something was going on, but she had to brighten the images, and the stuff that was captured was insane. Like beings like my buddy looked like he was being attacked energetically. The 2 videos of the sky, she took 2 pictures of the sky, and it showed 2 triangular craft where they were close to each other, and he could see a white light on each point. But then when she took a video of the same spot, you didn't see the triangular shape, but you saw an reddish orange light in the center of where the triangles would have been, but you didn't see the white lights. And she had the sense that these things were rushing her that she couldn't see, and she said that she had the urge to crawl under her car. And he emailed me several of them. I'll see if I can find them and send them your way. And then the laptop got stolen. So what I have in my Gmail are like the only remaining pictures that are available. He may still have them in his camera. I have 4 of those pictures that he emailed me of that event.
That would be fascinating to see. And if you can find those and share those with me, would that be okay to share with the public, or would that just be between us?
I think that'll be between us, because he's a strange person where he blames me for this stuff. And he's kind of a fiery Aries and profoundly psychic, where I think I told someone about the event and he knew about it when he told me not to tell anyone.
Yeah, no, that's
So,
okay. I just, I just have to say out loud whether they're going to be there or not. That is no problem at all. I mean, heck, with you just sharing this, he might be calling you and being like, "Hey, are you talking about this?" From the sounds of it sounds like he might know. So we will not be sharing those photos. But yeah, if you send those to me, don't worry, Ray. I will not release those at all. Well, all right. So that is part 1, everybody. And then Ray and I will hop on and we will record and chat about the rest of his experiences. And thank you so much for being willing to come on and share any of this, Ray. I know that we have some difficult things to talk about coming up for part 2, but I think that this is a good place to end part 1 and let folks digest this so far. And again, if you guys want to see those photos, go to intothefrayradio.com and head to this episode's show notes. Not sure what this episode will be titled quite yet, of course, or what number it is, but it'll be easy to find. But Ray, thank you so much. I look forward to talking with you for part 2.
Most enjoyable.